After 28 years of marriage, she sent me a text, just a cold message, saying she needed a week to decide if I was worth keeping. I didn't yell, I didn't beg. I took back everything and gave her exactly what she asked for, life without me.
I can tell we need to talk about.
My name is Harold. I'm 62 years old. I spent my life working as an engineer, built a house with my own hands, raised a son, and believed I had a solid, lasting marriage with a woman named Marion. We were married for 28 years. Through highs and lows, joy and struggle, I always believed we were a team. Maybe I missed the warning signs, or maybe I saw them but chose to look away. Work, bills, routines, it all has a way of numbing you. Then one morning, while reviewing some design specs in my home office, I got a text that changed everything. I need some time to think about whether staying with you is the right thing. I'll take a week. Please don't call. No explanation, no conversation, just that cold message. I read it 3 times. Most men in my position would panic. They'd call, beg, promise to do better. I wanted to, but instead, I closed my phone, took a sip of coffee, and finished the spec sheet I was working on. 20 minutes later, I picked up the phone and replied, "Take all the time you need. I'll be using mine wisely." The response came almost immediately. "That's it? What more is there to say? You made your position clear." Then came the typing bubbles, those 3 little dots that appeared and disappeared as she wrote and deleted whatever words she thought would trigger a reaction. But I wasn't playing that game. The first thing I did was call the bank and remove her as an authorized user on our joint accounts. I explained we were separating temporarily. Next, I changed passwords to all shared accounts: Netflix, Amazon, even Spotify. If she wanted to reflect on whether I was worth keeping, she could do it without leaning on my resources. A few minutes later, another text. "Why can't I log into Netflix?" Reallocating resources during your evaluation period. Are you serious right now? Absolutely. You said you needed space to think. I'm just giving you the full picture of what life without me looks like. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. For years, I had felt more like a fixture than a partner. The way she'd dismiss my opinions at dinners with friends, how she'd make plans without asking, and then act annoyed if I had prior commitments. The eye rolls when I suggested date nights. That text wasn't a random impulse. It was the result of a long, calculated decision. That night, I drove home with a calmness I hadn't felt in a long time. When I walked in, Marion was in the kitchen, arms folded, clearly ready for the big talk. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About what you did today. Cutting the cards, locking accounts. That's extreme." I poured a glass of water and looked her in the eyes. "You told me you need a week to decide if I'm worth keeping. I figured you'd want a clear picture. Hard to assess someone's value while you're still using their benefits." She flushed red. "That's not what I meant." "Then maybe you should have been more specific. Communication matters in relationships, or so I've heard." The sarcasm wasn't lost on her. She shifted in place, probably realizing the script she'd prepared wasn't playing out. "Look, I just think we need to figure out if we're still right for each other. Things feel different lately." "Different how?" "You know what I mean." "Actually, I don't. But here's what I do know. You sent a message treating our marriage like a probationary period. So, go ahead. Spend the week thinking. Just understand, you're doing it with full transparency. No shared resources. No soft landing." She stared at me, no doubt expecting me to cave, to explain that I was hurt and acting out. Instead, I finished my water and headed upstairs. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To use my time productively, like I said I would." That night, I researched divorce attorneys. Not because I had decided anything, but because a man who knows his worth doesn't sit around hoping someone else sees it too. As I turned out the light, I realized something. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The next morning, I woke up at 5:45. No alarm, no grogginess. Just alert clarity like I hadn't felt in years. I hit the gym, came back, showered and made myself breakfast. The house was quiet. Marion was still asleep, or maybe not home. I hadn't checked. While flipping eggs, I heard her footsteps. She stood in the doorway, watching me. "Did you sleep well?" she asked cautiously. "Like a log. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday." "That's the point, isn't it?" She looked for any sign of the old me, the man who chased her approval. That man was gone. "I think you misunderstood the message," she said. "It wasn't a probation. It was a mutual re-evaluation." "Really?" "Because it said you needed time to decide if I was worth keeping. Nothing mutual about that." The wording may have been off. No, it was perfect. It told me everything I needed to know. She shifted. "I don't like how you've handled this. I'm not here to be liked. Cutting me off financially, changing passwords. Who are you?" Someone who got tired of being taken for granted. Silence. The kitchen felt cavernous. "I talked to a counselor yesterday," she said. "And?" "She said I might be going through a midlife shift. And she also told you to text me an ultimatum?" She looked away. I stood, rinsed my plate, and walked to the living room. I spent the day calling law firms. One gave me a free consultation. Judith, the attorney, listened patiently. "You're in a strong position," she said, "but being right won't make it less painful. Do you want to save this?" I hesitated. "I think I want to save myself first." That night, Marion didn't come home. No calls, no texts. I didn't care. I made dinner, watched a documentary, sat on the porch with bourbon. For once, the silence was peace, not punishment. On day 3, she came back. "Can we talk? We've done enough of that." She sat down across from me. "You're acting like I'm the enemy. I'm acting like a man who's tired of conditional love." Her voice cracked. "I'm trying." "No, you're trying to stay in control." I handed her a folder. "This is what your life looks like without me. Rent projections, medical coverage, asset division. If you decide I'm not worth it, you'll know the cost. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. You wanted space. Now you have it, with clarity." She didn't argue, just took the folder. Day 4, she tried a new tactic. Nostalgia. "Remember our trip to Colorado? You held my hand the whole way. That man died somewhere around our 23rd anniversary." I saw the pain hit her. By day 5, she was unraveling. I could tell by the way she hovered near the kitchen, asking pointless questions. "Do you want me to pick up groceries?" "No, I've got it." On day 6, I walked into the house and found her sitting with a man in a suit. Mid-40s, tan, confident. The way he stood when I entered told me everything. "Harold," she said, "this is Lance. He's just a friend." I smiled. "Of course, just a friend. And I'm just the guy paying the mortgage." Lance extended a hand. I didn't take it. "Nice to meet you," he said. I doubt that. He had the nerve to look amused. "I'll just go," he said. Marion followed him out, whispering something urgent. When she came back in, I was sitting calmly at the dining table. "I can explain." "You don't have to. You're free to date whoever you want. Just know this evaluation goes both ways." She stared at me. "This isn't about us anymore. This is about what I will and won't accept." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I stood up. "2 more days left in your evaluation, Marion. Make them count." Day 7 arrived with a quiet, eerie calm. Marion stayed out again the night before. This time, she didn't bother texting. She must have realized by now that the man who once needed her presence to feel whole had changed. I no longer needed updates to keep my sanity. I didn't care where she slept. Her absence spoke louder than any excuse. That morning, I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and began sorting out the last of our financial ties. I'd already moved my direct deposits to a new account. The only thing left was the house. I didn't want to leave it, not because of sentiment, but because I built it. Every brick, every board. It wasn't just a place. It was my investment in stability, and I wouldn't walk away from that so easily. By midday, Marion walked through the door like she hadn't been gone 2 nights. "You've made your point," she said, not even a hello. "I wasn't trying to make a point," I said, not looking up. "I was living my life. You were the one taking time to think." She stood by the table, arms crossed. "I've made my decision," she said. I closed my laptop. "I'm listening." "I want to stay married," she said, "but I want us to go to counseling." "Interesting," I nodded slowly. "And what changed your mind?" She hesitated. "I realized I've been reacting out of fear. Fear of getting old, of wasting my life. I thought maybe I was missing something, but this week made me realize how much you actually do, how much you mean. Is that realization genuine, or is it because you saw your comfort disappearing?" Her eyes flashed. "That's not fair. It's honest. I need to know, Marion. Are you choosing me, or are you choosing not to be alone?" She walked closer. "Can't it be both?" "No." A long silence fell between us. Then I spoke again. "If we do this, counseling, rebuilding, then everything has to be transparent. No more passive aggression. No more just friends like Lance." She winced. "I didn't sleep with him. I didn't ask if you did." She looked confused. "Because I don't care, Marion. I care that you were willing to disrespect me in my home, that you thought I wouldn't see through it. I'm not a fool. I'm not some fragile man begging to be kept." She sat down. "I never meant to treat you like that." "But you did, for years. Maybe not with words, but with decisions, with silence, with distance. And now that I finally pushed back, you're trying to recalculate." Tears welled in her eyes. "So that's it? You're done?" I leaned back in the chair. "No, but I have conditions." She blinked. "You said you needed a week to evaluate if I'm worth keeping. Well, I've had a week too, and here's what I've decided." I slid a sheet of paper across the table. On it were 6 bullet points. We each attend individual therapy weekly for the next 6 months. Joint marriage counseling begins immediately. Full financial transparency. No contact with Lance or any other friends involved in this situation. A legal post-nup to protect my assets if we split in the next 2 years. An honest letter from you, handwritten, explaining why you chose to stay. She stared at the list, mouth agape. "This feels like a contract." "It is, because I'm done being someone's second choice or fallback plan. If we do this, we do it on new terms." She took the paper and didn't speak for nearly 5 minutes. When she finally looked up, her voice was smaller. "I'll do it." I nodded. "Then we begin today." Later that afternoon, we met with a marriage counselor I had already researched, Dr. Elaine Rhodes. She was direct, no nonsense, and exactly what we needed. The session was tense. Marion cried. I spoke little, but afterward, the counselor pulled me aside. "She's scared, but she also seems genuine. I don't want fear to be the reason she stays. She has work to do. You both do, but you've reclaimed your voice. Don't lose it now." I didn't. That evening, I took a long walk through the neighborhood. The air was crisp. Neighbors waved. I smiled. I hadn't smiled in weeks. Not like that. Not freely. Something in me had shifted forever. I wasn't the same man who started this week. I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I was choosing myself. Counseling began with politeness, the kind you use at cocktail parties or church potlucks. We both nodded at the right times, shared surface-level truths, and took turns pretending to listen. But underneath, real things churned. Dr. Rhodes started by having us each list what we thought the marriage had become and what it was supposed to be. Marion spoke of loneliness. She said she felt like we had become strangers, roommates. I spoke of invisibility, how it felt to be present but unacknowledged, supportive yet unvalued. I saw Dr. Rhodes glance at Marion, then back at me. She was cataloging something. Probably the fact that this wasn't just a rough patch, it was a collapse. Marion was taking therapy seriously. She arrived early, brought notes, and once even cried during a discussion about her father leaving when she was 12. I wanted to feel empathy, I really did. But mostly, I just felt tired, like I had done my grieving long before the first session. We didn't fight, not at therapy, not at home. But the silence between us wasn't peace. It was restraint, a mutual holding back. At home, she started cooking more often. She tried to initiate conversations about our past. She complimented my haircut. I nodded politely and went back to my reading. Then one evening, she handed me the letter. "I've finished the 6th requirement," she said. The envelope had my name on it, in her handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside were 3 handwritten pages. She wrote about our early days, how she fell in love with my steadiness, how she admired the way I built things, houses, systems, a family. She wrote about the drift, how she didn't even realize she was pulling away. She blamed fear, routine, and her own ego. And she ended with something unexpected. I didn't cheat, but I wanted to. I wanted to see if I still had power. That's what Lance was, not love, power. And when I saw that you weren't begging, I panicked. Because I realized I was losing the one man who had truly loved me without needing to be dazzled. I folded the letter and sat quietly. "That's the truth," she said. "I don't expect you to forgive everything, but I want to rebuild. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I nodded. Then we continue. Weeks passed. We kept attending sessions. We talked more. We even laughed once or twice. Marion began reconnecting with old hobbies, painting, writing. I could tell she was rediscovering parts of herself. And for the first time in a long time, I was doing the same. I started biking again, reached out to my old college friend for coffee, took on a side project consulting a young engineering team. It wasn't romantic, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was motion. Then one Saturday, she invited me on a hike. It was a trail we hadn't visited in over a decade. At the summit, she sat beside me and handed me a photo. It was from our first year of marriage. She'd kept it in her wallet the whole time. "I want to earn this back," she said. I stared at the photo for a long moment. "Then keep walking," I said. "We're not there yet, but we're not lost either." And for the first time, her smile didn't look like a performance. It looked like hope. Rebuilding sounds poetic, noble even. But in reality, it's more like standing in front of a collapsed house and deciding which bricks are still usable and which ones are too cracked to carry weight. By now, 2 months had passed since that first message, the one that changed everything. On the surface, Marion and I were better. We communicated. We coexisted without tension. Sometimes we even smiled at the same moment. But beneath that fragile calm was a quiet awareness. One wrong move and it could all fall apart. Therapy had helped. Dr. Rhodes was relentless in her pursuit of the truth. During one session, she asked us both a question that hung in the air like smoke. "If you could walk away tomorrow without consequence, would you?" I looked at Marion. She looked at me. Neither of us answered right away. "I'd stay," she said first. Not because I'm afraid to leave, but because I still believe there's something worth fighting for. I nodded, but I didn't echo the words. Not because I disagreed, but because I wasn't sure yet. I needed to see action, not just hear promises. And action, as it turns out, was just around the corner. The first test came unexpectedly. A friend of ours, Nick, was hosting a retirement party. He was one of the few couples we both still shared as friends post-crisis. We were both invited. I planned to go alone. Marion, to my surprise, asked if we could go together. "Do you think that's a good idea?" I asked. "I do, if we're really trying." So we went. The evening started well enough. People smiled. There were toasts, music, laughter. Marion stayed close but didn't hover. We looked like a couple again, at least on the outside. And then she saw him, Lance. He was across the room. Apparently Nick had invited him too. I watched Marion's entire posture change. Her shoulders tensed. She bit the inside of her cheek. "He's here," she said, barely above a whisper. "I see him. I didn't know he would be. I believe you." She looked at me, surprised. "You do?" "Yes. But this is the moment that matters, Marion. What you do now." She took a deep breath, then walked with me over to Nick, greeted a few others. She never approached Lance. She never even looked in his direction again. It was a small thing, but it mattered. On the way home, she didn't bring it up. Neither did I. Some victories don't need parades. They just need to exist. But the universe, in its strange wisdom, wasn't done testing us. A week later, my old friend Jim from work invited me to spend a long weekend up north. Just the two of us, fly fishing and drinking beer around a fire. When I told Marion, she paused. "Is this a test?" she asked. "No, it's rest. I'd like to come with you." "Then say that. Don't ask if it's a test. Tell me you want to come." "I want to come." So we packed the truck and drove north. The lake was calm. The fish didn't bite much, but the silence did. We talked by the firelight about things that weren't about our marriage. Books, movies, childhood. For the first time in months, we just existed together without analyzing each breath. One morning, I woke early. The sky was pink and dew blanketed the truck. I found Marion sitting by the lake, wrapped in a blanket, her face turned toward the rising sun. She turned when she heard me. "This is the most peaceful I've felt in years." I sat beside her, said nothing, just listened to the birds. Sometimes rebuilding isn't about therapy or contracts. Sometimes it's about shared silence. That weekend changed something between us. It didn't erase the past, but it proved we could still share a future. When we got home, I opened my drawer and took out the photo she had given me, the one from our first year. I pinned it back on the fridge. It didn't mean we were back to where we started. It meant we were finally moving forward. Rebuilding sounds poetic, noble even. But in reality, it's more like standing in front of a collapsed house and deciding which bricks are still usable and which ones are too cracked to carry weight. By now, 2 months had passed since that first message, the one that changed everything. On the surface, Marion and I were better. We communicated. We coexisted without tension. Sometimes we even smiled at the same moment. But beneath that fragile calm was a quiet awareness. One wrong move, and it could all fall apart. Therapy had helped. Dr. Rhodes was relentless in her pursuit of the truth. During one session, she asked us both a question that hung in the air like smoke. If you could walk away tomorrow without consequence, would you? I looked at Marion. She looked at me. Neither of us answered right away. I'd stay, she said first. Not because I'm afraid to leave, but because I still believe there's something worth fighting for. I nodded, but I didn't echo the words. Not because I disagreed, but because I wasn't sure yet. I needed to see action, not just hear promises. And action, as it turns out, was just around the corner. The first test came unexpectedly. A friend of ours, Nick, was hosting a retirement party. He was one of the few couples we both still shared as friends post-crisis. We were both invited. I planned to go alone. Marion, to my surprise, asked if we could go together. "Do you think that's a good idea?" I asked. "I do, if we're really trying." So we went. The evening started well enough. People smiled. There were toasts, music, laughter. Marion stayed close but didn't hover. We looked like a couple again, at least on the outside. And then she saw him. Lance. He was across the room. Apparently Nick had invited him too. I watched Marion's entire posture change. Her shoulders tensed. She bit the inside of her cheek. "He's here," she said, barely above a whisper. "I see him. I didn't know he would be. I believe you." She looked at me, surprised. "You do?" "Yes, but this is the moment that matters, Marion. What you do now." She took a deep breath, then walked with me over to Nick, greeted a few others. She never approached Lance. She never even looked in his direction again. It was a small thing, but it mattered. On the way home, she didn't bring it up. Neither did I. Some victories don't need parades. They just need to exist. But the universe, in its strange wisdom, wasn't done testing us. A week later, my old friend Jim from work invited me to spend a long weekend up north. Just the two of us, fly fishing and drinking beer around a fire. When I told Marion, she paused. "Is this a test?" she asked. "No, it's rest." "I'd like to come with you." "Then say that. Don't ask if it's a test. Tell me you want to come." "I want to come." So we packed the truck and drove north. The lake was calm. The fish didn't bite much, but the silence did. We talked by the firelight about things that weren't about our marriage. Books, movies, childhood. For the first time in months, we just existed together, without analyzing each breath. One morning, I woke early. The sky was pink, and dew blanketed the truck. I found Marion sitting by the lake, wrapped in a blanket, her face turned toward the rising sun. She turned when she heard me. "This is the most peaceful I've felt in years." I sat beside her, said nothing, just listened to the birds. Sometimes, rebuilding isn't about therapy or contracts. Sometimes, it's about shared silence. That weekend changed something between us. It didn't erase the past, but it proved we could still share a future. When we got home, I opened my drawer and took out the photo she had given me, the one from our first year. I pinned it back on the fridge. It didn't mean we were back to where we started. It meant we were finally moving forward. 3 months had passed since that morning when Marion sent the message that started it all. Seasons had shifted, so had we. Life returned to something resembling normal, but it wasn't the same kind of normal we had before. It was quieter, clearer, like walking through the ruins of something old, realizing what still stood and what needed to be let go. Therapy continued. Dr. Rhodes transitioned us into bi-weekly sessions. She said we were showing functional healing. I called it learning to live with our cracks. Marion had changed. Truly. Not just in effort, but in presence. She asked deeper questions. She listened without needing to respond, and she no longer tried to curate every moment for control. I changed too. I reclaimed parts of myself I hadn't touched in years. I took up woodworking again, built a new bench for the backyard, refinished the old dresser in the guest room. I began to feel whole without needing anyone to complete me. Then came the final conversation. I was in the garage, sanding the last edge of a cedar plank, when Marion stepped inside. She was holding the post-nup I had insisted on months ago. "I signed it," she said. I set down the sander. "I know I said I would weeks ago," she added, "but I wanted to wait until I knew I wasn't just doing it out of fear." I took the paper from her, looked it over. Her signature was there, firm and clear. "I don't want your money," she said. "I don't want your house. I want your trust back. And if signing this is what it takes to begin again, I'm all in." I nodded slowly. "It's not about protecting the assets anymore. It's about protecting the effort." She smiled. "Then we protect it together." That night, we cooked together. Pasta, wine, music from a playlist we hadn't used in years. It felt light, not forced. She lit a candle at dinner. I poured her a second glass. And when the conversation lulled, it wasn't uncomfortable, it was restful. We didn't need vows or rededications. We didn't need a ceremony. We had already walked through the fire and come out changed. Later, as we stood in the doorway of our bedroom, she turned to me. "Are we okay now?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "No," I said. "We're better than okay. We're honest." She nodded, tears forming, but not falling, just sitting in her eyes like truth. We went to bed that night without fear. Not because everything was perfect, but because we had survived the imperfection together. I still don't know if love can be fully repaired, but I do know this: it can be redefined. And sometimes the version you build after the storm is stronger than the one that came before it.